it out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 605th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Nancy Wolf. And why don't you switch us so that people can see us? Today is the 2nd of January, 2025. And because the studio has been closed for holidays, there was no Energy Week last week. And so I decided that we would do a 2-week-long show in 1 hour. So it's
just mega packed in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's the standard number of items. It's just that instead of choosing 3 per day, I chose 1 or 2. And that's where we are. These come from my blog, geoharvey.com. And you can go down on on your computer, if you're watching on a computer, and take a look at a web file that has these articles only. But basically what happens here is Energy Week is made up of articles from my blog. Each has a synopsis, each has a link to the original, and we are adding commentary. Yes. How about that?
Yes, yes, yes.
So should we just go ahead?
Yeah.
I think so.
So.
There we go.
Yeah.
Our first picture is wind turbines at dusk, and this is from Canary Media. And I recommend Canary Media. Usually its articles are pretty good.
I like the name.
Yeah.
I like the name.
Yeah. What do you have for title?
This one is Why I'm Optimistic About Clean Tech Over the Next 4 Years.
Yeah, and I'll read the synopsis. I want to comment on this. Vic Shao writes, quote, "Since Trump's win, industry insiders and the media have been wallowing in an unusual amount of doom and gloom." I wouldn't say it's unusual. I would say this is exactly what you'd expect.
Yeah.
But let me share a contrarian view. I think we're on the brink of a golden era for renewable energy and clean transportation deployments, end quote. Now, I have to say, I think this guy is right. And interestingly enough, he gives reasons. I'll read my notes here. He talks about the cost of renewable generating capacity and batteries going down, geothermal becoming a big part of the whole thing, EV adoption, lower interest rates, which I think is a little bit iffy to project.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to talk about this again in this show, and I think we've got things going on here that are going to make it very, very difficult for the people in Washington who want to get us away from renewable energy to do that.
Yeah.
They're going to have to explain to people why they're taking their jobs away. When did you hear of a politician doing that successfully, or unsuccessfully for that matter? But the thing is, I don't know, do you have?
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like the way I would think about it is it's like there's a line. And
yeah.
Like there's a line underneath all of the politics or all of the issues that it's become so popular financially, yes. that it's just there, and that it can't really be pushed away anymore because so much money is financing it, and it's just part of the ecosystem now.
Yeah, and we're going to come across one reason after another in the course of the show why we can't move away from renewable energy. Yeah. And there may be people who want to return us to fossil fuels, and for technical reasons they might think they can, but I just don't see it happening. They might try. I just don't see it happening. Cost of renewables and batteries coming down. I should mention this. Wright's law says that it's called the learning curve. That's another term for Wright's law. Mm-hmm. The more you do something, the better you are at it. And that means the more you do something, the less expensive it is.
Yes.
And solar power, wind power, batteries have all just, the prices have dropped like rocks. And meantime, fossil fuels have been around for so long that they can't do that anymore. And by the way, nuclear power, Wright's law for nuclear power says the more you learn about it, the more it costs.
Right, yeah. Right, yeah.
You have to, for Wright's law, you have to have the experience of going through a couple of cycles to find out what it is. And for nuclear power, the price just keeps going up. Okay, should we go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a picture of a Solaris Urbino 18, and that is an articulated bus that holds 100 passengers.
So the headline here is Solaris to deliver first EU battery passport compliant buses.
Yeah, this is from Clean Technica. Berlin's BVG transit system received the first electric bus with a battery passport. I will explain what that is. The Solaris Urbino 18 electric. In a statement, Solaris said the deliveries put BVG 3 years ahead of EU regulations, which will require a battery passport in all electric vehicles. That sounds like not just buses, but cars too, starting in 2027. Now, what is a battery passport? It is a digital document accessible via a QR code on the battery itself. So they put a QR, one of those weird boxes. Yeah, they're really ugly, aren't they?
Yeah.
You'd think that they could put a photograph of Alfred E. Newman or something. It provides comprehensive information about the battery's life cycle, including its composition, origin of materials, carbon footprint, and data essential for proper recycling. So they've got a lot of data in this thing.
Yeah.
You got more to say?
Not much on this one.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I'm going to go on.
Yeah.
This item is from Renews, and here is a bunch of windmills and wind turbines. And if you're interested in how big these things are, look at the very base of them, and you'll see the door that a person would go through.
Wow.
And those things are big. You know, I mean, a person who wanted to live in a tiny house could live inside one.
New economic model.
Yeah, and the people who service those things get paid a lot, and part of the reason they get paid a lot is because the first thing they do once they get on the job is to climb a ladder 30 stories straight up.
Yeah.
I would not apply for that job. Okay, this is from your news. What have you got for a title?
So IRA is set to boost U.S. economy $2 trillion. IRA is standing for the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah. Are you going to, as a politician, are you going to stand up to this? Oh, man. An independent study commissioned by the American Clean Power Association revealed that the Inflation Reduction Act, which Joe Biden was behind, and the Democrats, will potentially boost the U.S. economy by nearly $2 trillion, that is trillion with a T, over the next decade. So that's $200 billion a year. The report found that the law will incentivize significant investments and create millions of jobs. Now, you put investments into renewable energy, and they're going to invite other investments. So the government is putting up a bunch of money, or has already, but that money is followed by private industry coming in and putting in its own money. So, okay, how do you undo this, which Donald Trump has promised he's going to do?
I read, I mean, what do you say? You say, oh, it sounds like this is kind of why I said earlier. It's just
I know. He shuts it all down, but instead of telling people that their jobs are going away, he says that their jobs are moving to California, where they're going to be replacing the Mexican workers who are being shipped out of the country, who are working on agricultural fields.
Right. Yes. Yes.
No, this is not going to work.
Yeah. Agree. But yeah, it's just part of the same feeling of just this has been done, and there's now popular investment. It's going. And it's moving.
I think that, and if they decide to stop it, I think they're going to learn a big lesson. But I think the United States as a whole is going to be learning a big lesson too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, we have a very nice picture of Glacier National Park here. And I want you to notice the glaciers in Glacial Natural Park. There aren't any in this picture. This is from Clean Technica.
So this is, I liked this one. This is Montana Supreme Court rules that the state constitution means what it says.
Isn't that astonishing? In the 2023 session of the Montana legislature, Republicans passed new laws that attempted to limit the effect of a section of the state's constitution protecting the environment. A group of young plaintiffs sued, claiming the law was unconstitutional. They have won. In less than 2 years, they've won. And that by itself is kind of remarkable, but partly it's because they're in Montana and not the United States as a whole. They're not.
Right, because when also, I mean, that's part of, I think, some other parts of what we're going to talk about is, I lost that train of thought, so we're just going to cover that one.
Well, this was one that I thought was really good. The Constitution of Montana, this is the actual state's constitution, guarantees a clean environment and requires people and organizations to protect it. Not just to avoid making a mess of it, but if they come across a mess, they're supposed to clean it up. This is the way I read it. And I just don't see how there is an alternative to having, that Constitution protect the environment. And Montana's fossil fuels are significant.
Yeah.
They have the biggest reserves of coal of any state in the United States. They have an active producing oil and natural gas industry. So, and I don't know if they have anything that these kids would sue over when it comes to uranium or something like that.
Right, but I remember my seed now. But it's the local. It's the California doing what California does, or things like that, where you localize your issue, and then you start on the ground, and then
build
with like a community builder or that kind of organizer. You start to get those people, and then you get the next level, and then you get the next level.
And what happens here is that the United States Supreme Court has no authority over this, because this is a state issue.
Yes.
And so they can't come in and say, no, Montana Supreme Court. They can't do that. The highest court has ruled. This item is over unless we get into some kind of area of law that I think itself would be unconstitutional.
Yeah, probably.
But which can happen. Okay. Let's look at the next item here.
Yeah. So
this is from Renews.
And this is Nordlicht 1 secures, or Nordlicht 1.
Nordlicht
1 secures planning approval.
Germany's Federal Maritime and Hydrographic Agency, I'm glad I was able to pronounce that without, I know it's English, but I'd rather pronounce it in German, I think.
Yeah, probably.
Granted planning approval for Vattenfalls, I'm sorry, I blew that 3 times. 1 gigawatt Nordlicht 1 offshore wind farm. The project is in the west of Germany's exclusive economic zone. It will have 68 15 megawatt turbines. These are big, and will be the largest offshore wind farm in German waters. And that's gigantic.
Yeah, that's
the size of, in terms of capacity, it's the size of a large nuclear plant. And in terms of its ability to generate, because the wind doesn't always blow, it's about half the size of a large nuclear plant. And in terms of waste, it's about a zillionth of the size.
Yeah.
So let's go on. We are up to an item from oilprice.com, which I have seen referred to as a pro-fossil fuel site. It isn't. It's just reporting things. But
the headline on this one is U.S. solar power soared in 2024.
Yeah. U.S. has had record solar growth in recent years, supported by the Biden administration's Inflation Reduction Act. Didn't you talk about that before?
Yeah.
And greater access to green funding. Well, if there's green funding, it's not going to want to go away. The Solar Energy Industry Association, it could go to China, however, has recorded record levels of added solar capacity over the last year as more solar projects were added to the grid. The amount of solar in the first 10 months of the year, there was a bit over 27 megawatts of capacity added to the grid. Of that, about 2.5 gigawatts, about 2.5 gigawatts were wind power and about 2.5 gigawatts were nuclear. But the United States has got no nuclear plants planned. We have nothing in the development pipeline for now. And what that means is solar and wind between them with other renewables, about 90% of what was put in capacity, compared to wind to natural gas is 5%. Natural gas has fallen off a cliff.
Yeah.
The amount that is expected in the next 3 years is less than the amount that is expected to retire in the next 3 years. And what do you say to that? Meanwhile, solar and wind are just going in and going in and going in.
Yeah.
We're switching. We're in the middle of this. Now, Donald Trump can come along and try to change that. King Canute went down to the sea and told it not to come in with the tide.
But their whole, I don't know, it's their whole, well, a lot of folks in that realm, it's about, we just got to follow the market. The market will tell us. And then I have to say, the market has spoken.
Well, I think the market has spoken, yes. And these billionaires that Donald Trump is putting into various positions of power have got their own reasons for being in the positions of power, I think. Yeah. But by and large, they would have to have a pretty good reason to go against the market.
Right. That's their money, the religion. So follow it.
Yeah, and Donald Trump is going to find it difficult to keep them under control. Okay, our next item. This is a particularly a beautiful picture, I think, of the Great Wall of China. And I don't know what the wall is doing there. It looks like it's crossing itself. But it's a nice picture, I think.
This is
East Asian Forum.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one, reading this one. This is China's chance to step up. The title is China's chance to step up with a void on climate change left by Trump.
This is smart. A Chinese Green Marshall Plan in quotes, could ease the developing world's energy transition, stabilize China's domestic economy, and rally support for the multilateral trading system. But for it to be successfully executed, it will need to be grounded in multilateral endeavor. But what's happened here is if the United States doesn't act to pick up the same, to work on the same kinds of projects as China, it's not going to have anything to offer to the market.
And that's the direction that things are going. And what this article so well put, it's about collaboration and coalition and working and engaging these financial agencies and thinking of a plan.
Yes.
Versus,
yes.
Oh yeah, we're going to do that stuff we said we would do in that thing.
Yeah. And the Chinese are so far ahead of the United States in this market that if we don't move, we are going to be permanently left behind. So
yes.
Making America great again is not going to happen the way that Donald Trump wants it to happen.
Yeah.
And, I see this and I think, years ago I came across an inventory by Bloomberg. They had counted 650 electric buses in the United States. Shenzhen, which is a city north of Hong Kong and the city where the headquarters of BYD were built, Shenzhen had 17,000 electric buses in that one city. We had 650. In the whole country. A couple of months later, Bogota, Colombia ordered from BYD 702 electric buses, which they could feel confident about owning because they already had 700. And, we have people in this country who say, why should we be making electric buses? We should be pursuing fossil fuels. We've got lots of fossil fuels. Other people have got lots of fossil fuels too. And we're just going to be left in the dust by the Chinese. Mm-hmm. We're already being left in the dust.
Already, but it's this back and forth, our former president or our president put forth this agenda of the Inflation Reduction Act, which has done a lot to ingrain renewables, honestly, in our society.
And it has brought the United States into the world economy on a footing that could conceivably be as great as China. And if we get put behind that for 4 years, I don't know whether we're going to be able to recover.
Where will how will people trust that it's hard to trust that if you say you will do something, that you will actually do it when it can just flip.
Well, the other thing is you have Panama, for example. Just one example. Panama, and Donald Trump wants the Panama Canal back. It's like he doesn't realize that the Panama Canal was never part of the United States. It was a property that was leased from Panama by the United States, and the lease had a terminal date, and the lease was returned by Jimmy Carter, I think, to the Panamanians.
Yeah.
We never owned it. Donald Trump seems to think that we did and that they don't. And we should simply take it back. And what does that do if you're in charge of Panama and you're looking at a position where you might be invaded by the United States? What do? Well, if I were president of Panama, which I'm not, thank goodness, one thing that I might do, hypothetically, is talk to the Chinese about putting a military base in Panama. Is that what Donald Trump wants? We've got military bases, Chinese bases in the Caribbean already and in Chile already.
Well, that's what we were talking about before the show. When we're talking about like hegemonic powers, and they are, it is what it is. I mean, you have a hegemonic power, the United States, you have a hegemonic power. China, I mean, those are sort of the types of economies that they kind of do this whole thing where they want to switch out. One has to be the top. It's this order, the world order of things. It's
we could do better than we have done.
Yeah. Yep.
Our next item is from Yahoo News Canada, and we've got a picture of Windsor, Ontario.
Oh yes, of course, yes. The Windsor area is losing 2 weeks of snowy, wintry days each winter.
In the past decade, Canadian cities have lost 2 weeks worth of winter snow days each year because of climate change, according to analysis by Climate Central, a climate-related nonprofit. Instead of snow, there are days of rain, melt, and mud, which does not lend itself to getting guests at ski resorts.
No, it's mud season forever.
Yes, mud season forever. Let's go on.
Yeah.
We have a cable laying ship and substation. Oh yes, this is from Renews.
It says Jean de Noul, Hellenic Net French floater cables deal.
Jean de Noul, a partnership with Hellenic Cables, has been awarded a frame agreement by RTE to provide export cables for 2 French floating wind farms totaling 750 megawatts. 3 submarine cables, each of 20 kilometers, will transport the electricity produced by these floating wind farms ashore. And those, a substation like the one in the photograph is important because the wind turbines produce electricity and it all gets gathered together. And the electricity comes in as DC. Mm-hmm. It is probably sent ashore as DC, but it is gathered together at the substations before it goes ashore. Okay, December 25th. Yes, on December 25th at 4 o'clock in the morning, I was doing the news. Los Alamos National Laboratory has this.
I love this. Los Alamos is helping ready nuclear fusion power for the grid by 2030.
Just out of curiosity, I'm going to conduct a 1-person poll, 2-person poll. I'll participate too. Do you think this is going to happen? By 2030, we're going to have fusion power?
No, because that's what keeps being. Yeah, we keep saying it's gonna happen.
Almost my entire life, they've been saying fusion power will happen in 30 years.
Wasn't it in? No, it was not in Back to the Future, but
I don't know. But it was going to be based on water, and we had infinite resources to run this, and you can't run a fusion reactor on water because ordinary water won't do it. You need special isotopes. As fusion technology nears maturity, the problems associated with heating particles to 150 million degrees Celsius keep rising. How do they measure that? Well, they have ways to measure it. Michael Lively, a fusion expert who specializes in modeling solutions to these problems, may have solved one key issue. So at MIT, they might have solved one key issue. What else they have to solve?
Oh, well, they're talking about runaway electrons. And my note is, okay, fire. What will happen if they're running away? And their solution is fascinating. Absolutely. It sounds like it's interesting, but it's all risk mitigation. It's the way it's phrased as this is less bad than that other thing.
I will make a recommendation. Don't try this in your backyard. I mean, 150 million degrees. By the way, this picture is not a picture of the fusion reactor. It is a picture of a fusion reactor, but not the one that is used in this article. And we will get back to the article very soon, as a matter of fact. Okay, we have a picture of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, and this comes from Earth
Yeah. Earthquake activity will increase due to glacial retreat. Earth.com.
Yeah. A study by researchers at Colorado State University provides some compelling evidence that climate change can have influence on the frequency of earthquakes. The research adds to a growing body of work suggesting that shifts in climate can directly impact the seismic cycle. You know, there's a really good example of what happens here. In Greenland. In Greenland, the total large area, which is not as large as it looks on most maps, is melting. So it is contributing to sea level rise. But because it is melting, it reduces the weight on that particular part of the planet, which means that Greenland itself is rising faster than the seas. So the water, the position of the shoreline is going out to sea. This is actually happening.
Wow.
Yeah. And can you do that without having an earthquake? I think not.
Yeah.
Have you got anything on this?
This one?
Yeah.
No, just that makes sense. I can see that.
Yeah, okay. So we will go on. We're at Thursday, December 26th, and we have an item from the week.
Yeah.
And we're back to this fusion reactor. That's a tokamak reactor.
It's cautious optimism surrounds plans for the world's first nuclear fusion power plant.
Commonwealth Fusion Systems hopes to have a fusion power plant running in the next few years. Fusion power plants have never been used. There has never been one of these put into work making electricity for the grid, because the process is extremely difficult. In business and scientific communities, there is cautious hope of getting it going. And, well, I have a quote here. I'll read it. Jerry Navratil, I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm sorry, a professor of fusion energy and plasma physics at Columbia University. Columbia has such things?
Apparently.
Said to CNN, I went to Columbia. Columbia's got lots of stuff going on.
They have lots of stuff.
Yeah, it's the only place that I know of where you can get you can do a major in Korean language.
You can also go underground and see the old Manhattan Project. If you go all the way to the basement.
Okay, I'll take
There's
your
the
word.
Tunnels.
Take your word for it. We had tunnels at Pratt Institute. I went there too, and you could go from the engineering building to the library building.
Tunnels are so fun. That's so
they
fun.
are. Okay, he said there is a, quote, big difference between producing energy from fusion and having a practical system that puts power on the grid and is safe, licensed, and operating.
Yep.
And I will say it's not just a matter of containing particles that are at 300 million degrees. Was it 300 million?
Well, so the thing that stood out for me here was, well, I was looking at where they were putting it. Okay, who's going to deal with this? Richmond. Not far from Richmond, this county, Chesterfield County, Virginia.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, that's a city. Okay, so that population might be affected by whatever happens.
They might be vaporized because it's 300 million degrees.
Right, and it's not been and it hasn't happened before. So I thought about that, and then the other thing, it's all this stuff that says no risk of large-scale nuclear accidents, and I say define. What is a large-scale nuclear accident to this person? Yeah,
I think that's a good point. The Tashkent accident was not at a nuclear reactor, but it was a nuclear accident, and it wiped entire villages off the map.
Yeah.
And the reason why Americans found out about it, by the way, was because the Russians published maps that didn't have the villages on them. That's how they found out. Yeah. But in this thing, I should mention, I got into this a little bit before. you're not taking hydrogen from water and putting it in the reactor and having it fuse. You have to use isotopes of water, deuterium and tritium. Deuterium is like one atom in hundreds, and you have to have that extracted from heavy water, which is what the Germans were trying to make in Norway during the Second World War.
Tritium is not safe.
Tritium
is at Rocky Flats plant.
Tritium is radioactive.
Yes.
It exists in nature, but in trace amounts. You can't get it from nature. You have to make it. Yeah. And how do you make it? You make it in a nuclear reactor, a conventional nuclear reactor. This is far more complicated than some people think.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We're up to Friday, December 27th, and we have an item from Clean Technica and a bizarre photograph.
Yeah. The headline here is New Flow Battery Membrane Aims to Kill Natural Gas, Not Just Coal.
Yeah, a multi-institutional team based at the Imperial College in London and the Dalian Institute of Chemical Physics in China has been developing a new membrane for flow batteries with the potential to combine low toxicity with high energy density and a long life cycle. And all this is saying is they've got a new membrane. It works better than some old membranes in some ways, but it's part of this reducing the cost, improving the quality, and so forth. And it just goes on.
It's just a good news piece.
A good news piece, that's right. We had, Energy Week was copied and posted at the Imperial College website on one occasion.
Oh, okay.
we had a question about a piece. Tom Fennell had this question. He said, where they're getting the electricity for this, I think it was a train. I don't see any connections there. And we got an answer. And the answer was accompanied by posting the entire show.
Wow. Fascinating. Really interesting.
This thing shows up all the time. Okay. We have an item from ABC News. In this case, it is American Broadcast Company.
Yeah, this one is New York to charge fossil fuel companies for climate damage.
Isn't that impressive? I was impressed by this and also kind of unimpressed. Large fossil fuel companies will have to pay fees to help New York fight the effect of climate change under a bill signed by Kathy Hochul. This is already signed. This is law. Companies responsible for large greenhouse gas emissions will pay into a state fund for projects to address climate change. The thing is, they're being charged about 5% of the damage that they do.
But, I mean, that's not even the worst part of this.
Tell me.
Which is that the state, I read this and I laughed. The state must come up with rules on how to identify responsible parties.
Yes. And the rules that I saw in there were, I have no doubt that people would take this to court and say, this is silly.
Well, yeah, and I like how they signed it after Vermont put a similar law in place.
After what?
Vermont put a similar law in place.
Okay.
And at the end of the article,
and it hasn't really put money in our coffers yet. Okay, we're up to Saturday, December 28th, and we have a picture of, where is that?
Singapore.
Oh, yeah, it's Singapore. This is from the Straits Times.
Singapore had 122 more dangerous heat days in 2024 due to climate change.
This is astonishing and appalling.
Yeah.
Without climate change, Singapore would have 4 days of dangerous weather per year, primarily because it's surrounded by the sea.
Yeah.
According to a climate report from World Weather Attribution and Climate Central, scientists estimate that the Republic of Singapore experienced 122 extra days of dangerous heat in 2024. The ocean is getting warmer, Singapore is getting warmer.
Yeah.
And because its weather is so steady, it's easy to measure. So this is not good.
No. No.
Okay, should we go on? We're getting a
on.
little ahead of ourselves now. Do you want to say more about Singapore?
I have things to say about our next next
let's
one.
do it. Okay, we have a picture of Bill McKibben and an item from Clean Technica.
Yeah, Bill McKibben celebrates 2024. Climate successes can motivate us in 2025.
Yeah, Bill McKibben is celebrating 2024 by assessing successes in the transition to clean energy. He reminds it that when we go state by state and city by city, we are, quote, making gains everywhere we still can, end quote. He says, Texas and California are making real headway.
I definitely agree with what he's saying. I think that's part of what I was hitting on earlier. You start this local, small, and then you build momentum. Through that. Yeah. But I think some of the things I would love for Bill McKibben to come out against nuclear power, and he hasn't. I don't think, but
I thought he had.
No, maybe.
But I might be wrong.
From what I understand, he hasn't. So I like him, and I like how he operates, and that is my one. Yeah, that's my one issue. Is that or if he is not, he doesn't speak very loudly. At all on it. He doesn't talk about it.
He talks a lot about fossil fuels and not a lot about nuclear power. Are you familiar with Mark Z. Jacobson?
Mm-hmm.
There's a man who I think is very interesting, and he is adamantly against nuclear power.
Yeah.
And so. Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. It is something that should be said. And if Bill McKibben wants to come on the show and tell us that he hates nuclear power, he's welcome.
Yeah.
Come
on down.
Our next item, have I got to the right place? I have. Is from Clean Technica. That is a King Kong pickup truck.
Good news from China.
Yeah.
CATL EV Chassis. Radar King Kong pickup truck.
Radar is the company. King Kong is the model. It's the model. Stories from China include a new skateboard. The skateboard is the basically what it sounds like. It's the chassis of the truck with the battery and the motor and so forth. With a new skateboard by CATL and a battery electric pickup truck from Geely's Radar division. Sorry, Radar isn't a company, it's a division of a company. According to Car News China, the Radar King Kong electric pickup truck is available in China with a starting price of 99,800 yuan. Fortunately, they have translated that for us to $13,700. Why are Chinese vehicles so cheap? I think I have an answer.
They make them?
Well,
they make enough of them?
That's part of it. Part of it is Moore's Law, and they're just turning these things out like BBs. But in fact, they don't have many of the protections that American vehicles are required to have. These vehicles will not sell for anything like $13,700 in the United States. My guess is they would have to be above $30,000 to sell. They could do that maybe, but for a company like Geely has got the engineering ability to do that. They know how to sell vehicles all around the world. But this is where this is. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah.
Here we have a group of interesting people and an item from Clean Technica.
It's Musk and Trump. The road ahead is strewn with ethical challenges.
More than ethical challenges. Shall we say personality challenges?
Challenges, generally challenges.
Bloomberg points out that Elon Musk is the owner of several large companies that have major contracts with the U.S. government. Some of those companies have regulatory issues with various governmental agencies, issues the next administration could sweep under the rug. And I want to say something here. We have Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, Trump. I for some reason in this caption I've got Musk repeated.
Yeah, I thought maybe that was maybe it just feels like Musk is going to be the president. That they're merging like fusion.
Yeah, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Johnson, who is the Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
And I know Tulsi Gabbard. I like Tulsi Gabbard, and I haven't met with her a bunch of times, but at least 3, and we've chatted and stuff, and I wish I could just sit down with her and say, Tulsi, what are you thinking?
I know, and it's a whole pathway, because I remember when she so many.
She retired as head of the Democratic Party because she wanted to endorse Bernie Sanders for president, and she felt that was a conflict, and she retired. Before that, she was running for, I think she was running for Congress, but she might have been running for the Honolulu City Board or something like that. In Hawaii, they have a board like that is both the city and the county. So it would be the whole island. And the person who opposed her said, okay, you are in the National Guard. What happens if you win this election and then you get called into service? And Tulsi Gabbard just stopped campaigning and went about other business. This is a woman who I think has integrity. I don't know what's on her mind. I don't think she's qualified to be head of information for the United States. And I wish I could just tell her, because maybe she is, and I don't know, and I'd like to hear what her response would be. And she's invited on the show too.
She can come too. She should, definitely.
I like her very, and you know, I've met a bunch of people who are big names, and Tulsi's not the. Rupert Murdoch. I met Rupert Murdoch. He shaked my hand. I remember him well. I have no doubt that he has not got a glimmer of hope of remembering me, but I do remember him. Okay, we're up to Tuesday, December 31st, and we have a picture of solar panels here and an item from Power Magazine.
Yeah, Texas coal plant will convert to solar plus storage.
I actually have a new article on this, which will appear. I don't know if it will appear next week, but it's at the blog for next week for a day that already went. I've got 2 items on this, but let me read this. San Miguel Electric Co-op Incorporated, a rural electric cooperative in Texas, was awarded more than $1.4 billion through the USDA's Empowering Rural America program to convert lignite-burning power plants to a 400 megawatt solar and 200 megawatt hour, this says megawatt, I think it means megawatt hour, battery powering 47 South Texas counties. And $1.4 billion is a lot of money, but 47 counties is a lot of counties. I think this is something like 350,000 customers. So, but you know, it's big. We're done with that?
Yeah, I have something on the next one.
Okay,
next one probably.
You're allowed. I've got a lot to say about the next one. This is Clean Technica. That is the Cybertruck. I tell people you got to see a Cybertruck to believe it.
I've seen them here. I've seen them in Brattleboro.
I have too, and I got to tell you, I have my opinion. I want to hear yours.
I was really just going to say, well, this says Tesla Cybertruck not off to a good start.
Yep.
Well, I would say it's definitely not off to a good start, considering the explosion that happened outside Trump Tower with the Cybertruck. I think today or yesterday or something like that. Yeah.
Let me read the synopsis.
Yeah.
Tesla started regular deliveries of the Cybertruck in October. The company seems to have claimed that Tesla is very often not very clear about these things. 2.2 million reservations now after delivering only about 30,000 trucks. It says people ordering a Cybertruck can get it in 4 to 6 weeks. So you can get one of those things in 4 to 6 weeks. There it is. You want it? I would love to drive one of those things. You know, like Harold and Maude at the end, the kid drives the hearse off the cliff. I would love to drive one of those things off the cliff. These are not good signs. Actually, I wouldn't, because it would do environmental damage. But
that's what I mean.
I started to think that Elon Musk might be not just a mad genius, because I think he is a mad genius, but beyond that, a misanthrope. And he's intentionally designed this thing to be as offensive looking as possible, and he must have contempt for his customers. That's the thought that went into my mind. Now, do I really think that's true? I don't know.
I don't know.
I kind of hope it's not true, but nevertheless, it is something that bothers me. What other explanation is there?
I have nothing. I have nothing. I truly have nothing.
But you have a comment.
Like, my comment is that it just exploded. What's going to happen? It just exploded outside.
No. I read the latest thing on that. The truck didn't explode. The truck, the bed of the truck had fireworks mortars, gasoline, camping fire starting liquid, and stuff like that. And a guy drove up, and the truck blew up. And this is regarded as a terrorist act by a person who committed suicide in the process. That's my understanding. But it's a terrorist act, and it's
very specific.
Very specific. But the thing is, this Cybertruck tells you something about things. Elon Musk said this thing was really safe. The back of the truck held together well enough that the power of the blast went up. And it was, the truck was only about, I'm going to guess, 20 feet from the front door of Trump Towers. It didn't break the glass in the doors of Trump Towers. How do you explain this? Well, the explanation is that truck is really well built. Built like something I'm not going to mention on this show. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be comfortable or good or anything else. It's like, oh, yeah. I don't see how I don't see any beauty in that. I don't see any, I just see that as
Back to the Future.
No, Back to the Future by comparison would be lovely.
Oh, well, yeah, of course, yes.
You know, I'm a person who I look at Van Gogh, mm-hmm. and I find it very hard to look at his paintings, because when I look at them, I see pain.
Yeah.
I see the artist's pain. I see that even worse in what's the Norwegian painter who did the Scream?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And I don't like looking at those. I mean, I've seen a couple of Van Gogh paintings that didn't have that. You know, the beautiful colors of the wildflowers and things like that. But what is in that? It's like an emotional nothing. And it bothers me. Anyway, we should probably finish this up.
Yeah, we just have one
one item.
One item left.
I have been, probably not on that track, but I've been on a railroad through Switzerland. And I got to tell you, if you have to go visit Switzerland, travel by rail. Really, it's so much fun because you can just sit there and watch the mountains go by. And I went from Basel, which is in the western end, to Innsbruck, which is way past the eastern end of Switzerland into Austria, when I was 15 years old. And it was quite an experience. This is from Railway Gazette International.
This is, the headline is Swiss trains switch to 100% renewable electricity.
Yeah, the sun isn't always shining, but they manage to use it anyway.
Yeah.
They capture some light and store it in a bin, and out it comes at night. Swiss Federal Railway, I should point out, by the way, the caption of the photograph is Swiss train, and then in parens, SBB CFF FFS image. And those are the initials of Swiss trains, Swiss Federal Railways, rather, in German, French, and Italian, which are 3 of the 4 languages that are spoken in Switzerland. What's the other? Romansh. You don't know about Romansh?
I don't know about Romansh.
Okay, let's finish this, and then we can talk really quickly about Romansh. They're switching to 100% renewable power up to January 1st, yesterday. Around 90% of SBB's electrical needs were met by hydropower and the rest by nuclear. The nuclear power is now being sold as SBB buys an equivalent amount of certified renewables. I had a friend who, years ago, haven't seen him for 40 years, but he told me that he and his wife were driving through Switzerland. He's Italian, his wife is French. They're both fluent in English, German, French, and Italian, and Spanish. So this is a multilingual couple. He went to Greece for a summer, and when he left Greece, he was fluent in Greek. 3 months, he was fluent. And he was driving along. He also knew Latin. He was driving along, and all of a sudden it dawned on him that the signs on the road were in Latin. And it didn't make sense. And then he found out that they were Romansh, which is a dialect, it's a Romance language that is very, very similar to Latin.
Huh.
And exists in the present time, and it's not spoken by very many people, but it is a language that is official in Switzerland, parts of Switzerland. So there you have it.
Right.
And of course, they all speak English.
Yes. Yes.
So I shouldn't say that really. They don't all speak English, but okay, we are done, and we are suggesting that everybody have a thrillingly undemanding week.
Yes. Fully.
I am the laziest person I know, and you can tell it from that. I want to have a thrillingly undemanding week.
I think that's good. I'd like to. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So let's get back and wave goodbye or say goodbye or whatever. There we go. Bye-bye.